It starts quietly, an extra option at your IVF clinic. For just $99 more per month, would you like to remove disease risk, improve cognitive score, add a few inches of height? Click yes. Everyone else did. By 2100, some humans will be genetically streamlined, taller, healthier, engineered for success. Others? Still rolling the dice at conception. The species didn't split with a bang, it split with a subscription. But how did CRISPR editing get cheap enough to become casual? When does reproductive freedom harden into a genetic caste? And could enhancements stack so far that crossbreeding fails entirely? This isn't science fiction, it's a price curve and a timer. Could CRISPR actually birth a second human species? One designed, one discarded? Let's trace the fault line before it becomes irreversible. It didn't happen with a headline or a law or a scandal. It happened the same way everything happens now, one subscription at a time. In 2007, sequencing your genome cost nearly $1 million. In 2010, about $30,000. By 2023, thanks to Illumina's Novasec platform and newer silicon-based tech from Ultima Genomics, that number collapsed to under $200. And within a decade, analysts predict full genome sequencing will dip below $100, possibly even $10 by 2035. When your DNA costs less than your sneakers, you don't need to be a billionaire to edit anymore. Just curious. Gene editing followed the same curve. With CRISPR-Cas9, a gene can be modified for under $30 in lab reagents. Older editing methods like zinc finger nucleases used to cost approximately $5,000 per edit. But now, with base and prime editing, prices are dropping fast and precision is climbing. The biology is complex, the market is simple. A child without asthma, that's a selling point. One less prone to obesity, that's a savings estimate. A slightly higher IQ, that's a competitive edge. Would you pay $99 a month for an IQ Plus gene bundle? Drop your answer in the comments. No judgment, just posterity. This is where polygenic scores enter the marketplace. Polygenic scores crunch thousands of gene variants into a single number, like a credit score, but for predicted traits. It doesn't promise you a genius, but it can rank your embryos by their likelihood of heart disease, cancer, height, or cognition. The first child selected based on a polygenic score was born in 2020. The clinic didn't promise a smarter baby, just one with lower long-term disease risk. By 2027, over 100 IVF clinics worldwide offer polygenic screening as an optional add-on. By 2030, companies begin offering gene editing bundles alongside it, and by 2035, you can subscribe to your child's genome like a Spotify premium plan. Bundle examples. Basic, remove single gene diseases, plus polygenic screen for height, IQ, BMI, fertility. Prestige, custom embryo edits including base-enhanced muscle mass, bone density, skin resilience, and culturally adapted gene variants. One-click optimization, and it scales beautifully. You don't need to understand base pairs or statistical variance. The clinic does that. You just pick the package, like a streaming service, but for your descendants. So what happens when perfection becomes a payment plan? By 2035, the cost of editing a single embryo has fallen below $500, and global adoption begins to mirror smartphone uptake. Steep, unequal, and irreversible. This is the inflection point, not when the rich start editing, but when the upper middle class starts doing it too. Because once enough people upgrade their children's genetic odds, disease resistance, cognitive edge, social desirability, not editing begins to look like negligence. What parent willingly gives their kid a disadvantage if they can afford not to? It starts with medicine, then upgrades, then enhancements, then quietly. Incompatibility. By 2040, your child's reproductive future may depend not on who they fall in love with, but on whether their genome is considered up to standard. The edits stack, the baseline drifts, and somewhere in that silent drift, a firewall begins to form. You don't wake up in a caste system. You slide into one policy update at a time. By now, the genetic upgrade economy is fully mainstream. You can choose to skip it, sure. just like you can choose to raise your child without vaccines or seatbelts. But socially, economically, biologically, that choice comes with consequences, and the most profound of those consequences is inheritance. This is the germline divide. In 2023, the National Academies defined germline editing as changes made to sperm, eggs, or embryos that become part of the DNA of every cell and are passed on to future generations. Somatic editing, by contrast, affects only the individual, like curing a disease without altering future children. Germline equals legacy. Somatic equals treatment. By 2050, germline editing becomes the new normal in higher-income clinics across the globe, not just in the US and China, but in growing fertility hubs like Singapore, Israel, South Korea, and the UAE. At first, it's therapeutic. Remove a disease risk, fix a lethal mutation, but soon, the edits begin to stack. One generation increases average height by 2 to 3 centimeters. The next removes heritable mental health risks. Then comes fertility, bone density, pain tolerance, longevity, and intelligence. Always intelligence. In 2022, embryo selection trials at New Hope Fertility Clinic demonstrated that choosing the top-scoring embryo out of 10 could yield an estimated IQ boost of approximately 6 points. Polygenic prediction for cognitive traits remains controversial, but uptake is growing. No single edit is revolutionary. But over time, the divergence is unmistakable. This is how we build a future where some children are genetically designed to succeed and others are genetically unchanged and falling behind. The separation isn't just social, it becomes reproductive. In 2047, the first longitudinal study shows that genetically enhanced individuals are 30% less likely to successfully conceive with unedited partners. The cause? MHC mismatch, a set of immune system genes critical for mate selection, embryo viability, and immune resilience. The MHC, major histocompatibility complex, governs how the immune system distinguishes self from foreign. Genetic editing may introduce rare or synthetic MHC configurations. Studies in mice, primates, and humans suggest MHC compatibility influences both natural attraction and pregnancy success. Dating apps respond first, filters appear, gene tier 1 only, baseline compatible matches, certified germline partner. It starts as personalization, but personalization is just a euphemism for segregation. In 2055, a quiet shift occurs. A fertility insurer denies coverage to a couple attempting conception on the grounds that their embryo carries non-aligned genomic architecture. Translation? The embryo isn't edited and therefore deemed unfit to gestate in a modified mother. It's the first documented case of what bioethicists call the fertility firewall, a barrier not of law or violence, but of biological policy. No one bans baseline reproduction, but they don't insure it either. By 2065, 46% of edited individuals are using genomic compatibility screening before dating or reproduction. By 2075, interlineage conception success rates drop below 2%, just 2% crossbreeding. That's below the 1% gene flow threshold evolutionary biologists use to define incipient speciation. Should we ban germline editing after 2040? Yes or no? Decide what kind of ancestor you are. There is no declaration, no manifesto, no gene law etched in stone. There are just two groups now, one with compound edits stretching 3 generations deep, and one still human, just not compatible. One group sees unedited partners as romantic risks. The other sees edited children as a betrayal of nature. By 2080, the UN convenes its first hearings on reproductive human stratification. A polite way of asking, are baseline humans becoming reproductively obsolete? No decision is reached. The panel dissolves in political deadlock. Meanwhile, the firewall remains. It doesn't need enforcement. It's already in our blood, our clinics, our compatibility charts. And if less than 1% of edited and unedited humans are still interbreeding, At what point do we stop pretending we're one species? By 2085, there are still no camps, no flags, no extinction events. There are just two types of human and fewer children between them. In evolutionary terms, a species split doesn't require war or hatred. It only requires time and disinterest. And by now, the numbers are damning. Less than 0.7% of enhanced humans are reproducing with baseline partners. By 2095, that number drops below 0.3%. This is no longer social drift, it's biological divergence. The CRISPR-enhanced population now carries accumulated gene edits across 3 to 4 generations. Synthetic immuno upgrades, multi-trait polygenic stacks. Stabilized cognitive gain, alleles, longevity extension edits tied to DNA repair mechanisms. What started as +6 IQ points is now +18. Height differentials stretch to +12 centimeters. Average life expectancy in the edited population approaches 122 years. Even the blood work differs. Standard vaccines don't work the same, drug dosages need recalibration, and then there's the reproductive lockout. In 2096, the WHO quietly confirms cross-fertility between fully edited and baseline humans now fails in 99.98% of attempts. The underlying causes, chromosomal rearrangements, epigenetic incompatibilities, and synthetic gene silencing mechanisms introduced by accident or design. In 2098, the United Nations convenes an emergency panel. Are baseline humans now a protected subspecies? The hearings are slow, polarizing. Lawyers from 30 nations argue both sides. Are the unedited the genetic poor, or just a cultural minority? Some nations propose interbreeding quotas for universities and elite job markets. Others recommend genetic sanctuaries, physical zones where baselines can marry, reproduce, and live without biological discrimination. The press labels it the Bio-Apartheid crisis. The enhanced population calls it cultural preservation. Baselines call it what's left. It turns out you don't need natural selection to create a new species. You just need market segmentation. What Darwin imagined happening over thousands of generations, we brute forced in 3. And now we have 2 kinds of humans. One designed by engineers, one designed by accident. Could CRISPR birth a second human species? It didn't need to. We gave birth to it ourselves. Through policy, through subscription plans, through compatibility algorithms, and quiet insurance denials. No one declared the speciation event. It just showed up in the fertility data. And when your child's genome requires a license to be recognized, you're no longer a population, you're a precedent. Should humanity ever be edited beyond compatibility? Who gets to decide which traits define the next species? And what if this has already started? Comment below. Should baseline humans have protected status by 2100? Stay tuned. Next episode, Proof of the Quantum Soul drops next week.